Hey garden family. I was getting ready to start my video, audio, whatever, and realized that some of my notes were chopped off by the printer. So you gotta love it. So I'm basically going over some things for basically how do you garden, or how to garden, or how does your garden grow, which is part of a little series that me and Sydney are going to be starting. She'll also do, I think, one video at least. Her next video is going to be on her different plants and what she's done with them as far as propagating all that stuff, but also some of the soils that she may have to use. I think she has to use a little bit different stuff because everything she has is in pots, so it needs to be a little bit lighter when she moves stuff around, and plus she doesn't have to deal with clay soil. But also that, how does your garden grow has to do with, your soil, which is your soil type, the different nutrients in your soil. So it'll be a series of videos that we'll do, and maybe have a playlist by the end of the year, and just talking about those. And so I just wanted to go over the soil types and maybe just some quick things about how to amend them. And then the next few videos will be about composting and amending those soils. And then the next video will be the nutrients in those soils. I mean, because otherwise, if I talk about all of this stuff, it's going to take an hour. And nobody wants to sit there and for an hour to one video. So again, the first video will be soil types and some quick amendments for them. The second video will be the composting and things like that to amend your soils, which is pretty big because there's a lot of different things you can do to amend your soil. And then, of course, talking about composting and the different ways of composting. And then the last thing will be the actual nutrients that you put in your soil. Or maybe that will be the second one, and then the last one will be the composting. It won't be the very last, but I mean, it'll be the last one that we do today. So the first type of soil, which I think everybody has the issue with, is clay soil. But of course, knowing your soil type, whether it's clay, sand, silt, loam, peat, or chalk, will help you choose the right kind of plants for your garden and maintain them. A thing to notice is that when you first start gardening and you have to do a soil test, and I'll get into that in just a second, when you first learn about your garden and you know what you have to do for it, it's second nature how you take care of your plants from then on. So it's not like you have to soil test every year, you have to amend every year, because you're going to automatically do it as you plant plants, as you dig garden beds. It's just going to be second nature after a while. It's not something that I really thought of after the second or third year, because I just automatically do it. So like when I first started digging and I had to amend the soil because I had heavy clay soil, and most of us have heavy clay soil because when they build housing, they just give you backfill. The backfill is nothing but clay and crap from building when they build your house. So they just throw everything in there. How many times have you dug in the ground and found screws and nails and things like that? So I mean, I found bottles, so we know how that goes. So the clay soil, as you know, is heavy. And when you think of clay, you can almost think of like Play-Doh almost, and how that's no matter what you do to that, it's always going to be clay, sticky and hard. So clay soil is a heavy soil type that benefits from high nutrients. The clay soils remain wet and cold in winter, and they dry out in the summer. And when clay gets dry, it gets hard and cracked. So it's just really not a great soil. But the thing is that some plants do actually thrive in it. A lot of shrubs thrive in it. You can put a boxwood in some clay and it's going to do what it's going to do. So one of the tips is, in addition to a lime-rich chalky soil, such types as peaty soil, silty soil, and loamy soil are defined by their acidity in proportion of the sand, clay, and silt. So that's, as far as the clay, that was just, that's one I have to deal with, and I usually add a lot of compost to that. You can do topsoil, but adding another soil to your clay is only going to get you so far. So clay is also the smallest of particles. It's smooth when dry and sticky when wet. You know, just like your Play-Doh. It feels lumpy and sticky when very wet, rock hard when it's dry, and it drains poorly. So, you know, do we really want to plant plants in that? You know, there's few air spaces. It warms slowly in the spring, and it's, you know, heavy to cultivate, so it's not that great. Then you, of course, you have sandy soil. Sandy soil doesn't hold many nutrients. I think most of the people who have a lot of sandy soil, of course, along the coastline. I know that when my dad lived in Mississippi, he was about maybe a half a mile away from the beach. And so when you would dig, initially it was just nothing but sand. And so he had a lot of his little plants in pots, even some of his veggies. And so the size of the sand particle is between this actual sand and clay. It's, you know, silt feels smooth and powdery, and when wet is smooth but not sticky. And so the texture of it is kind of rough, and it's not going to do really well for your plants. But there are some plants, of course, that thrive in it. I think the California poppy is one of them. That's a native of California, of course. So sandy soil, it feels gritty, like we know, because of sand. It drains easily, but it can drain too easily. So it's like the water's going right through. You think of the beach, and you're on the beach and you're building a sand castle. You have to constantly keep that sand wet to maintain form. Same thing. It dries out very fast, but it's easy to cultivate. Sandy soil warms up fast in spring and tends to hold its heat because, well, it's sand, right? Let's see. And it has very little clay in it. Then, of course, you have loam. Loam is the perfect soil. That is the one that is like that black soil that you get out of the bag, and it's loamy. It forms a little bit, but it doesn't hold the form for very long. You can crumble it easily. It's rich in nutrients, and it's black. You know, that means it's holding a lot of nutrients in it. Let's see, and let me go to one of my little cheat sheets. You see it. Let's see here. And so on the loam soil, it's just a mixture of the sand, silt, and clay. It tends to be equal parts. It's basically the perfect soil, and most plants will thrive in it, except for, you know, the few that do thrive in poor soil. And we all know there are some plants that just don't care, and they will thrive anywhere. This soil is fertile, easy to work with, and it provides good drainage. And so I do like the loam soil. And then you have, let me go to my notes. Okay. Then, of course, we have peat, which is basically an amendment that you can add to the soil that provides a lot of drainage. And one thing I want to say is that when you have clay soil, my experience is, do not add sand to it. Then it becomes just gritty clay. Sand, even though you're thinking, okay, if I add sand, then it's going to provide me with that drainage that I need. Sand, yes, but once you add clay and sand to the mixture, it becomes even harder than before, and you're not going to get drainage from it. So I thought I would mention that. Silt is just a soil particle whose size between sand and clay. It feels smooth and powdery. I'm trying to think. The back portion of my yard is very different from the front portion of my yard. So when I did a soil test, I did have some silt back there because there was no backfill to my yard because I'm on a slope. I think I've mentioned that a few times before. So the soil in the backyard is actually a little bit better for some plants, and it's a little bit better for drainage. But the front is where I garden because the slope is so bad in the back. And so, of course, when it's wet, it feels smooth and not sticky, and clay is the smallest of the particles in there. Let's see here. And oh gosh, they have so many soils. So coming to, let me see. So we have sandy soil, clay soil, silt soil, peat, and then we also have the loam, and then we have the chalk soil. Chalk soil, of course, is just like the chalk that you use on a chalkboard, kind of. It doesn't really have that many nutrients to it. And it's just this chalky, there's not too much that's going to thrive in there. It can be really light or it can be heavy. So, you know, I think it's high in aluminum as well. And then, so when you have these different soils, the best thing you can ever do is do a soil test. And so a soil test, you can either buy a soil test, or you can go through your county extension office and get it done for free. I'm not saying every county extension does it for free, but most do. Okay, that's my husband and a dog coming down the stairs. Lovely. And so if you go through your county extension office, they're going to require you, well, not require, but they're going to ask you to do a soil test, and they're going to have you go through different sections of your yard, and you're going to get 3 separate soil samples in each section of where you're gardening at. So the front portion, the middle portion, the back portion, both sides. So you may end up doing, you know, anywhere from 9, 12, or 15 soil samples, and that's just in the front yard. And of course, that depends on how big your yard is. But I would pretty much stick to where you're going to be growing things, you know, even if it's just putting trees in the yard. And that same goes for the backyard. Like I said, when I did a soil test, my soil test came back, and I did it myself, so I didn't send mine off. But the soil test, my soil in the backyard was much different because I didn't have all the backfill from construction. So if you're doing a soil test, you can pay anywhere from $5 all the way up to $50 for a soil test that you buy at a store or online. Like I said, I think the best thing to do is go through your county extension. It takes a few weeks for them to do, but they do it all the time, and they have a lot of great information. So if you go to your county extension, they also have classes, volunteering, and things like that. So I think that is a great place to start, especially when you're trying to find out about your soil type, and because your soil type is going to tell you about your plants. Just like we talked about your microclimate and your, you know, which is, you know, how much sun you get, how much shade you get, how much water you get, and things like that. The next biggest thing is your soil. What is your soil holding? Is it holding enough nutrients and things like that? So that's where you need to start at, is with your soil. Go through your county extension office, and you can also go through the Department of Agriculture. I don't need to put the links in there because those are big sites. And plus, putting a link in for the county extension is just going to bring up my county extension. And there are hundreds of counties, if not thousands, in the United States. And putting a link from mine, that is just not going to help you out. So just go through, just put in your, you know, my county extension and whatever your county is. So like mine is Gaston County. So I will put in Gaston County Extension Service. It pops up. And in the search bar, you just put in soil test, and they will, the first link that usually comes up, or the first 2 links, are links that tells you how to do your soil test, and they actually send you out a kit. So for the cost of mailing soil to your county extension is how much it's going to cost you to do a soil test. So if you're, you know, a gardener who's been doing this forever, then it, you know, doing it yourself is not going to be a big deal. And, you know, if you decide that you just want to try it out on your own and just buy a soil kit online or through a big box store like Home Depot or Lowe's, then, you know, you can do that. And so that's what's all we're going to talk about in this one. The next one, of course, is going to be talking about nutrients, and then after that, we'll be talking about composting. So that's it for this video. And of course, if you have questions, concerns, things like that, just make sure you mention it in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.